Are you looking for a spooky story, a scary one? Well, you're in the right place because my name is Jim Harold. I host a podcast called Jim Harold's Campfire, and I've done hundreds of episodes. I've heard thousands of stories, but this by far is the wildest one I've ever heard. It's really something worthy of having been written by Mr. Rod Serling himself. But the difference is this one happened. It's true. And here it is. The Roadhouse Saloon.
It was a midsummer night, and my friend Bob and I had traveled about an hour and a half from where we were staying to go hear a band play in Ashland. And Bob was friends with the band, and we listened to the band and we stayed after they played, left there maybe 1:30, 2 o'clock. Nobody was left in the bar. They were putting the chairs up, and we got in the car and started driving. Now, it was one of those super dark nights. Like, it was overcast and it was moonless, and where this takes place, there are no city lights, there are no towns, there are no, even, you drive by farms and they have those halogen lights by the farms. We're going through woods, and there was nothing. It was so dark that it felt like you could not see beyond the headlights. And so with animals and deer, we were kind of watching closely, but it was like the light just was swallowed up as we traveled. And we were listening to music and laughing as we were going along. And after about an hour, I started to feel like I really needed to find a bathroom someplace. And so I said, where are we? How much longer do we have? And he said, well, we're about halfway. I'm like, oh, dang, we'll drive faster. So we kept going, and it was like county roads. And the roads were blacktop with watching the line and up over hills and around. And as we turned down and started heading south with about 35 minutes left of the drive, I noticed this bright red glow off to the left. And as I looked, I saw neon signs on, and it had the open sign, and it was a sign that said the Roadhouse Saloon. And it was on the other side, so we had to kind of come back and cross the two lanes, and then we pulled into this gravel parking lot, and there were a few cars, maybe 3 or 4 old beat-up cars. But what was unusual is it was really late, and it was probably almost 3 o'clock in the morning by now. Maybe just shy of that or just after, I'm not positive. I didn't notice the clock, but it was still open, and there were cars. So I said, oh boy, I'm saved. Pull in. We got in, and I got out of the car. Bob got out of the car, and it had a door that was one of those like quilted doors. It was this heavy door. And as we were walking in, so I told Bob to just order a couple of beers, and I was going to find the ladies' room. And so we walked in, and as we walked in, everybody in the place turned and looked at us and almost simultaneously went, hi. It felt like almost we were expected. So Bob went to the bar, and it had this big horseshoe-shaped bar as you come in the door, and then the bathrooms were around this side. And as I walked around, there was a pool table, and there were 2 guys that were standing at the pool table leaning on their, holding a drink, I believe, and leaning on their pool cues. And then there was a dance floor, and I just went past them and found the bathroom. And when I went in, the lights were off. So I did what I had to do, washed my hands, put the paper towel in the bin, and since the light was out when I came in, I turned the light out as I went out, and Bob walks up to me, and he's got a long neck beer and hands it to me. And as we were pulling in, this is a really important part that I left out. He said, Roadhouse Saloon, I've been wanting to come here because Bob lives there year round. He's the caretaker for the family property. And he said that people were talking that they had this big mural painted there. It was this huge wall, probably a 17 feet or something, big, huge wall mural. And so he said, oh, this is great. We get to go in and see this mural. So he hands me the beers as I come out. And we turn and start walking towards the mural. And as I come out of the bathroom, this young man comes walking up to me, and he's holding a beer, and it's a glass beer, and it's kind of sloshing, and he's teetering a little bit, and he smiles, his big smile, and his teeth are kind of discolored, and he says, "Hey, you want to dance?" And I walk with a cane, as I said, and so I just pointed to the cane and said, "Sorry, I can't dance." It was like, once again, the cane saves me. And so he just kind of wanders off to the jukebox, and as we're walking towards the mural, the jukebox was on the left, and it was this antique Wurlitzer, beautiful jukebox. It was the round topped with the neon lights inside, and it played vinyl 45 records. This was, you don't see those anymore except in museums. And he goes over and he drops a coin in, and the record goes down. And as we started walking across the floor, the song that started playing was Chubby Checker, Let's Twist Again, like we did last summer. And everybody just kind of stands there, and a couple of ladies get up, a few people get up and just kind of shuffle, dance as we walk across the dance floor to the mural. And we're looking at it, and it was a very unusual painting. It was like a stage backdrop, almost in the way it was done, because the picture sort of faded out at the edges. So it looked like it was trying to create an illusion that was part of the saloon. Although the characters were larger than life, if you were at the other side of the room, you could almost imagine a movie scene on the other side. But the way it was painted was with really like almost garish colors, bright, the perspective was a little bit off, and it looked like it was bottom lit, like old, footlights coming up. So it was kind of it was disturbing to look at it to me. It was not a pleasant, it wasn't like, oh, look, the Old West. It was like, oh, that's, it's kind of weird. So we're just looking at it, and the record stops, and then I think it was about this time that Bob turns and looks over to his side, and he's looking up at the mural, and he's looking at the guys, and the guys never started playing pool. I don't think I heard pool balls at all. I didn't notice other people. They were holding drinks, but I didn't notice anybody else drinking or really doing something, except when the guy by the jukebox put another quarter in. And this was after there was probably a 10-minute break between the first song, and he put the quarter in, maybe not that long, 5, another quarter or whatever in, probably a dime in a Wurlitzer, and the same song started playing. And once again, people just kind of stood up and just kind of, so like the ladies walked out onto the dance floor, and the pool guys set the stuff down and just kind of danced a little bit, and then the music stopped, and they just, without talking, nobody was talking, it was a bar, and they just went back to their places. And that's when Bob noticed. We watched him go back, and we're just kind of looking at each other like, this is just weird, these people are odd. And he looks at the mural, and he looks at the guys over by the pool table, and he nudges me, he says, T.I., look at those guys there. And there was in the painting, there was a gambling table, and there were gamblers sitting around the table. And he said, look at those guys, and then look at the guys at the pool table. And he says, don't, be nonchalant, so I'm looking at it. And it was them. It wasn't identical, but it was clearly them. I mean, it was the same body types, the same facial features. They were being depicted in that painting. And so we started looking at the other characters in the mural and finding them in the bar. And every person in the mural was in the bar. The ladies, one of them was leaning over, there was a piano player, and the guy who was putting the money in the Wurlitzer was the piano player. And one of the ladies was like one of the bar fly ladies leaning over the piano. And then there was a younger lady that was like up on singing, or this blonde But they were all in there. They were all different characters. And the bartender was very striking. He was wearing this, a tank top t-shirt, and he had huge chest muscles. He looked like a farm kid. They would lift bales of hay, and just this tank top and big muscles. And he had this great big smile, and he was probably in his 20s or something. And he said hi. He spoke to us, and he was there, and he was standing there, same muscles you could see through the shirt, and he was like a gunslinger. He had a cowboy hat on, and he was coming in, the gunslinger up there looking real cool. And so we got it was weird at first, and they said, these people are obviously regulars, and wouldn't it be a cool thing to do if you were a mural artist to take the people, maybe they're the owners, maybe they're here celebrating a party or something, and so it's their place and they're in the mural. And we said, yeah, that's probably right. And so he said, well, let's ask them. So our beers were empty, so we walked back across the big dance floor, and as we walked across the big dance floor for a third time, the guy by the jukebox, who never left the side of the jukebox except to dance, put another coin in the jukebox, and it played the exact same song. Now that sent shivers up my spine, and it does right now still, because if I was smart, I'd have left right then. But 2 times, a person play a song 2 times in a row, that could be your favorite song. That could be a memory, that you want to redo. But 3 times and nothing else in between, that was just weird. So I said, maybe we should just go. And Bob says, oh, no, I want to find out who painted this. I want to find out more about the mural. Let's ask the bartender. And so I'm like, okay. We go back to the bar and order another beer. And Bob says, so is that all you guys in the mural? And the bartender's leaning on the bar like this, smiling, and says nothing. And I'm like, did the artist paint you guys in the mural over there? And he's just no answer. And so I addressed the ladies on the other side of the bar. I said, that's you guys up in there, isn't it? Did you pose for this, or did you get photos, or how did this work? And they just looked at me. It was like we didn't speak the same language. They did not respond. And that was just like, we're like, well, maybe people, and so you make excuses, you rationalize. And Bob says, well, maybe they've been here all night. And I said, the bartender. But so he says, well, let's just go back and take one more look, and then we'll get out of here. So as we're going back, the music is still playing. And as we're halfway across the dance floor, I look at the mural, and there's 2 more figures in that mural. And there was the swinging saloon doors off in the corner off to the side there. And it looked like there were 2 shadows, and it was like gray, no features. You couldn't see any features, but you could see that it had color, was starting to, I can't say, I didn't see it change, but it looked like it was painted to start give the illusion of color coming in. And I noticed that the woman, and it was a woman and a man, and it looked like us. The height difference, curly hair, you could see it, but it was still just a silhouette. And I had a pink longer skirt on, and the color in the skirt was pinkish. And I grabbed Bob's arm, and that's when I noticed that the woman had a cane. Now, I gotta tell you, if it was just, I've got shivers all over my body right now retelling this, because I feel like it was this close to never coming out of that place. If I hadn't had the cane, I may not have realized what was really going on. And what was really going on is we were starting to become part of that mural. Not become, I don't know how that is. I don't know how that works or what that is. But boy, I saw that cane, and we looked at each other and we said, let's get the bleep out of here. And we turned and he kind of grabbed me and pulled me along. We just dropped the beers on the thing, and everybody, as we were leaving, stood up and just watched us go. And the music is playing for the 4th time, Let's Twist Again, like we did last summer. And we hit that door and pulled the door open, and the guy at the Wurlitzer, he says, "Wait!" And the door closed behind us, and bam, pitch darkness and no sound. And I froze because I didn't know where my footing was, and I did not want to fall down and get stuck there. And both of us just stopped, and Bob said, "Don't move. I'm going to go start the car and turn the lights on." And he did. He turned the lights on. He came back and he got me, and as we were pulling out, it wasn't lights on the outside of a wooden building. It was windows that had the beer signs and the open sign and the Roadhouse Saloon sign. And those windows were dark, and the signs were all off. And as we turned, he goes, and the gravel is going up behind the car. And as we turned, there were no cars in the parking lot, and nobody left when we were in there. Nobody arrived, nobody left. And we pulled out and got back on that highway and didn't say a word. We just kind of sat there stunned, just feeling like stunned, just overwhelmed at what had just happened. And finally, we looked at each other and said, "Did that really happen?" And Bob said, "Yeah, that just really happened." And I said, "What happened?" He said, "I have no idea what happened, but we just got out of there by the skin of our teeth." And we drove down the highway. I was like, I could barely sleep that night. I just felt like, people disappear all the time. And it could have, Bob and I took off through the woods to go listen to music. We could have just never come home, and they never knew what happened to us. They didn't know what route we took. People knew what bar we went to, but between there and where we were, an hour and a half of North Woods, they could have just figured we drove off into a ravine or into water or ran off together, although everybody knew that was ridiculous. But that happens all the time. And that, I felt like that could have happened to me, to us. So the next day, all my sisters, it was a summer that all my sisters and cousins that had young children, my kids were younger then, we were spending like several weeks up north on vacation together. And so I told them the story the next morning, and they believed me. It was obvious that I was upset about something, and I just said, "This is what happened." And then my one sister says, "Oh yeah, right, that's never gonna happen." And I said, "I'm telling you, when I got home, you were watching the kids." And we went to this place and the Roadhouse Saloon, and I have 4 sisters and sisters-in-law, so there was like more than half a dozen other women there that said, "Well, let's go." And then Bob, the caretaker, they asked him, "So what happened last night?" And he said, "I don't want to talk about it." And they said, "Where did you go last night?" And he said, "We stopped at the Roadhouse Saloon on the way home." And then they got the story out of him where he was not there when I told it. So it was starting to get more believable to them. So about a week later, we planned a field trip to the Roadhouse Saloon. I did not want to go back to the Roadhouse Saloon. I did not want to see that mural. I felt like there was no reason I would ever have to go back there again in my life. But my sisters and my cousins talked me into it. Although it was about 8 o'clock at night, it was still light. Up there, it stays light till 10:30 in the summertime. So we all go up, we walk in, and the place on the dance floor, there are tables set up. People are eating food. There's the mural. The bars, they're exactly the same. The thing is set up the same, except the jukebox is not a Wurlitzer. The jukebox is one that's got CDs. And it was a completely different machine. And I idea how that could happen. It wasn't like I went in there and hallucinated, Bob and I together hallucinated the change. So I went up to the bartender, was this young woman, and I said, I didn't want to like say what had happened because, they'd call a physician or something or somebody else. And so I just said, hey, where's the other bartender? And she said, what other bartender? And I said, well, Saturday night, there was another bartender here. She said, no, there was no other bartender. There was a young guy, I said. He was, he was really friendly and just really nice guy. And she said, no, my dad owns this place and he and I are the only ones who tend bar here. And I said, I'm sure it was this place. I came into this place and it was really late, it was well after 2 o'clock, close to 3 o'clock in the morning. And she said, my dad and I tended bar Saturday night and we closed at midnight. And I just went, and my sisters were, so we stayed a short time and then we left and I have not been back since.
I told you it was a good one. And if you like creepy stories, I hope that you'll listen to my podcast, Jim Harold's Campfire. It's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcasts. Also, I hope you'll subscribe to this YouTube channel for future campfire stories and other paranormal and spooky stuff that we do. And a special thanks to T.I. for sharing her story. What a great one it is. And I would be negligent if I didn't mention T.I. actually has a book out about some of her early supernatural experiences. It's called Beyond Brick and Bone, A True Ghost Story, Volume 1. And there'll be a link in the notes of this video. And there'll also be a link to our podcast. Well, thank you so much for listening and for watching. I hope you'll listen to more and watch more. And as I say in my programs, stay spooky.